Game Points here on TSN 690. What about the crowd, Dave? What was the atmosphere like in Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, it was a Toronto atmosphere. It was all right. I was surprised at how many empty seats there were for the first few fights of the night. You figure you're spending $300, $400, $500, $600 on a ticket, you would want to watch the entire card. But some people only showing up a little bit later, so the buzz not really there for the first few fights on the card. But it picked up throughout the night. There was definite buzz for the John Jones Vitor Belfort fight, the Michael Bisping Brian Stan fight as well. But it wasn't a continuous kind of energy from the crowd. It's not a Montreal crowd. And I was talking to a lot of people that are from Ontario, and they were telling me, crowds in Toronto, they're just not that great. And, some of them had been to Montreal and said that it was just much, much better. For some reason, we have a crazy atmosphere here in Montreal.
Yeah.
And it's just...
Well, it was like that for the Expos in any meaningful game, the Canadians as well.
It's just, I don't know what it is about Toronto. They're not...
Yeah, it's quiet.
They're not passionate. They don't have that flavor. I don't know
what
it is.
Maybe it's corporate.
I don't know if it wasn't corporate last night. It was, fans, normal people, some drunk guys, whatever, but it wasn't like it is here. There's something about Montreal. We're more wild as a people, and I love it.
He is Mr. Dave Simon. Check out ringsidereport.net. That's his website. You can also hear him here on TSN 690 Wednesdays and Fridays, and don't forget to check him out on Twitter. Dave Simon MMA. Nice couple of picks Dave was tweeting out last night. So if you love UFC or even wrestling for that matter, check him out on Twitter at Dave Simon MMA. You had some good stuff coming in live.
Yeah, very good. I had great seats, courtesy of the UFC, so always appreciate that. And it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun going.
Who's your favorite guy post-game? Post-event, I should say.
Are you talking... Well, Michael Bisping was very entertaining. He was cracking jokes. He was very funny on the dais there. Dana White's always good as well. He actually went out and called out a Toronto Sun columnist.
Steve Simmons?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, that guy. You know this guy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Dana White called him out.
He's been on TSN's The Reporters for years.
Yeah,
sure.
He said some things about the UFC that were actually false in his column, and Dana called him out on it and said, Steve.
Just randomly just pull him out?
Well, there was something that ticked him off, and Dana was saying, well, I was debating with myself all night. Was I going to do this? Was I not going to do this? And he said, you know what? This guy from the Toronto Sun. And he's like, yeah, Steve, was it Steve Simmons?
Yeah.
Yeah, is Steve here? And he called him out. And people were looking around like, and he wasn't there, which is weird. You figure, and I saw him earlier in the night because I saw the picture of the guy later, and I recognized him. So he was at the event, but you figure this guy, he's a professional journalist.
Right.
But he's showing up for the fights. But this guy doesn't show up to the post-fight press conference?
Yeah, egg on the face.
Yeah, he's too busy to show up to and this guy got a credential from the UFC, but he doesn't show up to the post-fight. So I kind of wonder about how professional this guy really is. And he says things that aren't true about the UFC. And Dana White's calling him out, and he's not even there to show up and defend himself. So
in a situation like that, if I were the UFC, I'd actually pull his credentials and not allow him the next Toronto. And I'll tell you, it's even more publicity because he'll rag on them in his column, and that'll just in turn fire up the interest.
They do that. They do that with certain journalists. Like there's Loretta Hunt, who's a mixed martial arts journalist, used to work for a website. Now she works with Sports Illustrated. She's banned from the UFC.
Wow.
She said some things that Dana White did not like, and she does not get credentialed. And she talks about it a lot. I mean, she writes about it, and she's kind of the one example that everybody looks at as like, oh, you don't want to say the wrong thing and be like her, because then you'll get your credentials revoked. And I would not be surprised if this guy got his revoked. And he should, man. You can't go out in the newspaper and print lies about the company. He was saying that the UFC's pay-per-view numbers are declining. The UFC doesn't release their pay-per-view numbers. This guy doesn't know. He has no idea. He's just making things up.
That's bad. That's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good. You can't do that. You got to be a little more calculated than that if you're going to criticize someone.
Well, journalists in Canada, they're hacks for the most part.
Wow. All right.
They're not very good.
Dave Simon MMA, if you're a journalist in Canada and you want to send him a message.
Yeah, or you can meet me at the gym. Either way. Hey, I've also seen the journalists in Canada, especially the sports journalists. These guys, they don't even walk. They drive around. Most sports journalists are fat, out of shape, have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to actual athletics, never practice the sport, but they will rip on an athlete until the end of time and say, oh, if I was there, I would have done better. No, you wouldn't. You're in terrible shape. Most of these guys are, it's shocking to me, working in sports media for as long as I have now, at how fat and out of shape everybody is. It's a little bit disgusting. I remember PJ Stock, a good man, used to always complain about that when he used to work here, saying, you guys work at a sports radio station and you take an elevator up 3 flights and you never take the stairs. And most of you could really need, the exercise.
Fair point.
Good man, that PJ.